So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to go to the map and I would like to browse the features of the map in the properties area, just so you can see what you're dealing with. Okay? To see with what you're dealing, excuse me. Okay, so if you could take a look at these things, in the properties, you'll find a couple of features. First of all, there's ability to specify who provides the imagery or the map contents there. There's a server used for routing of paths for when people want to go from A to B. How do they route? And there's a metric: do you route by the fastest way or the shortest? And you can also specify the type of route that's found. Now, you'll notice that routes, you can use here routes that are requested from a server, and thereby you ask, okay, I want to go from A to B. Tell me how to go tell me which way to go, fastest or the shortest, okay? By foot, by car, or by bike. Or it could be loaded in from a file with a certain pathfinding algorithm that will be applied to that file. This is what's called an A-star search, and basically it's a clever way of sort of finding a short path in a file that would specify the connectivity. Alternatively, you can say, for more animal movement in an unimpeded terrain or in the air, you could say straight lines. So these things travel in straight paths rather than being routed, according to a footpath or something like that. So routes you can specify, in some cases you just go in a appropriate heading. And there's also this capacity to load shapefiles, GIS shapefiles, which specify terrain features, etc. We've used these for years. Long before AnyLogic rolled out this stronger GIS support, we used it with shapefiles. And back then it was more of a hassle in terms of the shapefiles, because the shapefile didn't provide certain types of information, and AnyLogic would give error messages that weren't clear. But you had to go figure out what was lacking. And now I trust that it's more it's probably more robust. But just be aware, you may have to figure out what's bothering it with the shapefile. And there's some other things here, custom tile provider or a custom route provider if you want to use your GIS database or a special imagery or what have you, and a projection type, which is going to affect some aspects of how it's presented in 2D. So these GIS functionality have quite a bit of detail if you want to go into them. And you'll notice that in addition to you could specify GIS routes or regions or points using these additional functionality from the palette. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to explore some use of these this GIS environment by agents now, and I'd like to go see how agents could interact with this. Okay. Now I have actually quite articulated example, which involves fairly sophisticated agent behavior, but I'm aware that the topical material, which has to do with impacts on physical activity and eating habits of individuals, it's of less central interest by this group. So I'm going to want a show of hands here. I could go probably through mid-afternoon, maybe late afternoon, with an example that would show some new features, including the use of action charts to illustrate decision-making by agents in a very visual way. But it's going to involve some mechanisms that are going to take a couple hours to put in place. It will involve a hybrid model, a model that where each person has dynamics associated with weight governed by stocks and flows within them. So there's going to be system dynamics within each agent. Might be interesting there, but it's a topical area, impact of built environmental weight, that isn't of central interest to this group. I recognize that. Alternatively, we could have an abbreviated version of that model, which would illustrate people's movement to, say, supermarkets or convenience stores, how they move along routes to those, but would not get into details of their behavior and so on. And we could take that time and we could put it into other topics, including, for example, an additional type of hybrid modeling today, or a hierarchical model. So I want to see a show of hands. How many people would like to see this full GIS model, including agent decision making, effects of convenience stores, and if we have time, parks, on people's behavior using action charts? How many people would be interested in seeing that? Okay? How many people would prefer to see the basics, how people are routed to convenience stores or grocery stores, but not see all the details of how agent behavior is shaped? Okay, the ayes have it. We're going to do it full on. Okay, great. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go a place you've never seen before then. And we're going to begin by putting in place a hybrid